Okay, here with Ipswich Town CEO Mark Ashton, and Mark, I guess the first question is why was the time right to relieve Paul Cook of his duties?
Spoke to the board after the game on Saturday. As you would expect, myself and the board are in communication consistently all of the time, and the board felt that recent results and performances had been very frustrating and not where it would be expected. When I put it to the board where we were at, we discussed it in detail, and they unanimously said, we think it's time to change. And at that, you've got a very clear voice from a board, and so therefore we made the decision to change at that point.
And that was all made after the game on Saturday. There was no decision made before.
There were discussions. Look, as you would expect, there are ongoing discussions all of the time. But formally, we made that decision on Saturday evening.
Yeah, and that's come from all of the board members.
All of the board members, 100% unified in what is a difficult decision.
Is that a head over heart decision that's been made there? Because you've obviously put an awful lot into Paul Cook. Paul Cook's put an awful lot into his role. It's a tough one, isn't it?
It is, and it's really important that publicly I thank Paul. He's been really good to work with. In fact, he's been great to work with since I arrived. I think he used the language at some point that he wanted to put a bomb under the place. And as I said before, I didn't quite understand that until I got here. And in many aspects, he's absolutely right in what he said. And it's unfortunate that the results and performances recently haven't been where we would have expected. But his ethos, his work ethic, his professionalism have been first class, and I'd like to personally thank him and his staff for everything that they've done and the assistance they've given us. But a decision has been made by the board, and now we have to move forward.
How did he take that when you? Presumably it was yourself that.
Yeah, myself and Mike O'Leary. Paul's a professional. He was absolutely professional. No problems at all with that. He conducted himself as I would have expected and hoped.
Yeah, and have you spoken to the players since? Is that your job to now speak to the players and bring them together?
Again, I think it's all of our job, to be honest with you. I spoke to several senior players on a call after we'd made the decision on Saturday night. Once we made the announcement, I then met with a number of the senior players yesterday. I met with the largest senior player group first thing this morning, and then I met with all players and all staff, and that was to have some honest and frank discussions about where we are and how we move forward. And they were really professional in those discussions.
Yeah, I've heard kind of semi-publicly from a few of those players, most of them suggesting they feel like they've let their manager down. Was that a flavour of what they gave back to you in those discussions?
Yeah, I think particularly this morning when I spoke to several of the senior players, with respect, we all have to look ourselves in the mirror. We all have to say, what could we have done different? How could we have been more effective? Because ultimately the manager pays the price, but it's all of us. I keep saying this. We are in this together. And yes, some of the players have said to me, Mark, ultimately it sits with us. We should have done better. We're better than where the league position is. But also those players have been very, very, very clear in telling me this season is not dead. This season is not over, Mark. We need to sort this out. And whoever comes in, whether that's in the interim or long term, we need to get behind them and get this club moving up the league.
That was going to be my next question. This decision and the timing of it, how much of that is making a success of this season, which was obviously a very important one for the club?
I think you take it all into consideration. As I said, these are not 2-minute discussions with the board. These are lengthy debates on what's best for the football club, and the board will only act in the best interest, what they believe is the best interest of the football club. And yes, we're 7 points outside the playoffs, more than enough games to go to make sure that we're in that shake-up at the end of the season. We've got a January transfer window coming up. And you put all of that is put into the debate. It isn't one individual point that gets to a tipping point and makes a decision. So with all of that taken into account, the board said, we want to do it now.
Yeah, and that's the past. Moving forward, John McGreal is the interim manager. Why John?
John was spoken to after the game on Saturday, and to say he was in a state of shock was probably an understatement. But right now, we felt we needed to have someone in who'd got as much experience as we could probably get to just steady the ship. Because when you change your manager, the whole club wobbles. It's just natural. And he's a good, solid leader. And he's got a large number of league games under his belt. And he's an Ipswich Town man. So myself and Mike O'Leary met with him on Saturday night. We asked him if he would take the team, and his words to me were, and Mike, well, look, I'm an Ipswich man. I'm not going to let the club down. If that's what you're asking me to do, I will do it.
Some unusual circumstances there. It's not often. Obviously, was it Thursday? John came into the club in an under-23s coaching role, and by Saturday evening, he's leading the first team. It's an unusual kind of time frame, I guess. But
yeah, and I think, listen, it's really important here because people add one and one together and get a number which is just not true. So I'd interviewed John with Gary Probert for the development role which he was coming into. We'd spoken to Paul about that because Paul knew him, in fairness. And then Gary Probert completed the interview progress, appointed him in the week. The only other time I've spoken to him, and Mike O'Leary's spoken to him, was after the game on Saturday. And you could see when you spoke to him initially, there was a real uncomfortableness and a shock around him. But his words to us again, I'm an Ipswich Town man, I'm not going to let this club down in its hour of need. I will step forward and I will help. And I met with Kieran Dyer yesterday. The same conversations with Kieran. Kieran was absolutely first class. Kieran said, the club needs me, I'll step in and I'll assist. We brought in Rennie Gilmartin this morning. Rennie's someone that I and my team know really well. And he was John McGreal's assistant at Swindon. So those stars, if you like, have lined up. And he's available. And I can't think again of a better man, a more detailed professional person to turn to when you need some support. So Rennie has joined us just this morning. But as I've said to the players and the staff, right now John McGreal's in charge. He takes it. He runs it how he wants to see it. While his hands are on the wheel, it has to be his team. Said that to the senior players, and Sammy Morsey as captain totally agreed. They need to get behind him, and we need to get some points on the board.
Is there a reason, significance why it's interim manager rather than caretaker? Is that just the way football language is going now?
You know what? That is just language. You can call it either. And we could probably find several other words we could call it, but no, it's just language.
How long do you anticipate him being in this role?
How long's a piece of string? The sooner the better. We appoint, that's for sure. But the one thing that we've got now is a little bit of time just to breathe and do this right. You could imagine my phone, emails, etc. on Saturday night and Sunday were just going crazy. We've had numerous approaches from managers in work, managers out of work, coaches in work, coaches out of work. So we will start sifting through those today. We haven't got someone in mind. We haven't gone and had clandestine meetings. That's just not how we operate. So we'll run that process as swiftly as we can, but as professionally as we can.
Does John have a chance at this job?
I'm too long in the tooth to say you can never say never. I'm going to be honest with you, and I've said this to John, I haven't put John in caretaker or interim place with the intention of giving him the job. We intend to go to market and we intend to find the best candidate. When you talk to John, the plan is that John reverts back to the under-23s and the development role. But look, in this world, anything could happen. You could go and win every game between now and the end of the season. But our plan is to go out to the market.
And you've said there's definitely nobody lined up.
No.
You've called it an extensive search, and that starts in earnest, I guess, on Saturday
listen,
night.
If you've seen the amount of names that have come in the next 24 hours, that makes it extensive just in itself. And it's not easy because you've got to try and get the big decisions right. And if this job was easy, anybody could do it. But myself and Mike O'Leary will lead that. We'll communicate with the board. We had a good debrief with the players yesterday and today, and we've got to step forward.
Have they surprised you? Have there been names on there that surprised you that were interested in it? Because on paper, this is a League One mid-table job right now, but it's obviously a bit more than that if you look at everything around the club.
Yeah, it's a League One mid-table club, you're absolutely right. But it's Ipswich Town Football Club. That totally changes the dynamic. Have I been surprised by some of the names? Yes. You have to verify them though, because you have names put forward to you by agents, and actually the managers don't know. Sometimes the agents have put the names forward, so you've got to sift through all of that. And that's what we'll do. But there's been a hell of a lot of communication with us over the last 24 hours.
Yeah, but no set time frame.
No, you can't. You cannot. If I said that, I'd be lying to the fans.
Do you know what kind of type of manager that you're after? Is it a head coach? Is it a young and hungry manager? Is it, for just throwing a name, an example of someone like Neil Warnock, who's obviously got a CV as long as you want?
Listen, I think why would you limit yourself to saying it's got to be a specific type? Because the other thing is, it's the same with players. Sometimes you have preconceptions on what people are like. Until you meet them, you don't actually know. So what we're going to do, we're going to have to meet quite a number of these face to face to find out the best fit. Look, I think, and I said this to the players this morning, I think we have recruited probably the most talented squad in League One. But right now, they're not performing as one of the best teams in League One. So we have to find someone who we believe can get the best out of this group. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be active in January, by the way, but we have a very talented group. We need, and that group needs to perform more effectively.
There are some obvious links out there. Of course, you've worked at other clubs in the past. You've worked with other managers. They will be linked.
I wouldn't read anything into that at all. There's no way I am simply going back to a name because I've worked with someone. That would not be professional. We'll run this process properly.
Why is this an attractive job? Why should people be applying?
It's Ipswich Town Football Club. I've said this in interviews before. If I've underestimated anything with this football club, it's the size of this football club. I've said to you, I've been at big football clubs historically. This is the biggest football club. Whether it's League One, mid-League One or not, it is the biggest football club I've worked at, for sure. And it's going to be the biggest turnaround. And I've said this to the fans time and time again. Off the pitch, we have got so much to do here. And there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes at the stadium, at the training grounds, that people don't see. Because everything ultimately depends on the performance and the results of the first team. But you've got to build solid pillars, solid foundations upon which to build this football club. And we will continue to do that. But we've got to also get results on the pitch. And look, we've got a really outstanding board. We've got an outstanding ownership group who have already committed a lot of money to this football club and will continue to commit substantial finances to this football club. And your first question's a really good one, where you say, you talk about patience, you talk about time, but they're also hungry for success. Don't underestimate that. They want to do it in the right way. We all want to do it in the right way, but we want success for this football club.
Do you think you can attract managers from higher levels? You've done it with players. Do you think there are managers currently operating at higher football levels that would see this job and think, you know what, the overall project is there?
Yeah, I think so. Again, as I said, we've certainly had interest from names who are at higher levels. But again, you have to sift through that, because what happens is the agents put the names into you. And I promise you, 50% of the time, the poor managers don't know the agents are putting them in. So you've got to sift through that. You've got to do your work. You've got to do it diligently. And that's what we will 100% do.
And just lastly, what's your message to Ipswich fans, just as they prepare to look at who they might think should be the next manager of this club?
My message has been really consistent. From June the 1st, since I arrived, the fans have absolutely been fantastic. I've had some really, really kind and supportive messages over the weekend. That you hear some of the fans at the end of the game, they're frustrated, and I get that. Be under no illusion, we share that same frustration. But we've got 3 big games over Christmas. We've got huge attendances. The club off the pitch is going in the right direction. We've recruited a very talented group. Attendances have been great, both home and away. And I can only say the same thing. One thing to the fans: thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you for your support. Just keep going. We've got a hell of a lot to do, but I promise you we will be relentless in taking this club forward.